Hello, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and welcome to MFSN's NBA Waiver Wire Show. I'm here as always with Casey, Vlad to the Bone, Scheinvold, and Ross the Boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss. And I want to talk basketball waiver wire with you, cowboy.
Let's do it. Guys, we're going to get right to it. It's Yahoo 60% and under owned. We're going to point guards first. Let's start with one guy that you think should be owned. I think we've all got the same guy on our top of our mind after last night's insane game. Casey, you start us off. You don't have to talk about him. We'll get to him.
I'm not going to talk about him because Kendrick Nunn is still only owned in 58% as of this morning in Yahoo leagues, and he's still putting up insane numbers. I think he's the 31st ranked player right now in Yahoo in the past at least the past 2 weeks. So he continues to be strong across the board. He's shooting for good percentages, and he's putting up all the other numbers as well. So he's still, to me, is my top ad at point guard.
Okay, but the guy that I'm talking about, and Ross, you broke the news to me last night, so I'm going to let you break the news on here too. I'm not even going to say it. Give me the news from last night.
So last night, TJ Mcconnell played for Indiana Pacers. He went to a horrible university. I'm not even going to mention the name because I hate the school so much. He did a triple-double, not with rebounds, assists, and points. He did it with assists, steals, and points last night. And he had 9 steals in the first half. It's unbelievable. So TJ McConnell, I'm sure he's on everybody's list. I mean, of course, he's like everybody's picking up right now as we speak. I'm sure he'll be over 60% by noon today, let's say. So if you want McConnell, you better pick him up right now.
Yep. And now listen, some people are going to say, oh, but he got 10 steals in one game, so that pads his stats. By some people, I mean Casey Scheinvold before the show. But, I do think that even if you take away his 10 steals, he still has more steals than anybody who is 60% and less owned.
And Dr. Dan, he's been in the top 50 the past 2 weeks as a player. So top 50 player the past 2 weeks. He's somebody that you should consider picking up, especially in that steal category, like you just said.
And let me defend myself here a little bit. I didn't say TJ McConnell's not worth owning. I said it also can serve as a warning and remind us to look at the overall stats before we just look at somebody's ranking, because I'll use Carmelo Anthony as a better example. He's certainly ranked much higher than he should be right now for the last 2 weeks, and is probably getting picked up by people, but that's because he had 5 steals in one game. And I don't know if Carmelo Anthony has ever had 5 steals in a game in the past before. TJ McConnell, as we've spoken about, has been ownable for probably the better part of 3 or 4 weeks now on this show. We've mentioned him a number of times. So I don't want people to think that I'm saying TJ McConnell is not worth owning because it was
I understand.
all in one game.
No, you were just making a point. But I will say this, in the last month, he is the 33rd ranked player in the entire game. Now, it's time for us to say hello to our chat room MVP, Sam Jacobowitz. He is here with us. Hello, Sam. Thank you for saying hi. Speaking of our chat room and everybody else out there, if you haven't done so already and you're new to this especially, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we will answer you directly. I've had lots of debates with people right on this site. Now, we have a question coming in, and guess who it's from? It's from Sam. He says, I just traded Simmons and Tatum for Lillard and Dejante Murray. However, defensive stats and assists are only worth half in my league. And of course, it's a points league. We know this well about your league, Sam. Don't worry. So interesting. Defensive stats and assists only worth half. So he traded Simmons and Tatum. He got Lillard and Dejante Murray. Ross, what do you think about this trade?
I love Lillard. So when he said he got Lillard, I like the deal a lot. I feel Lillard is going to have a great second half. I saw Portland's schedule. They actually are playing a lot of games because they had games canceled because of COVID. So for me, I think it's a good deal. I mean, it's just having a different scenery. I think it's a great deal, Sam. Congratulations. You did a great job.
I'm in agreement. Although I do wonder, Casey, what do you think about Dejante Murray? How much does he add to this mix?
I think he adds Lillard is clearly the star of the trade. He's especially in a points league, because he's pretty much the only scorer on Portland right now. And he does everything for them. So he gets crazy points, whereas Ben Simmons kind of has to share the spotlight with Joel Embiid, and Harris takes shots and stuff like that. Dejante Murray, I think he's a great point guard. I certainly think he's very valuable. I'm not as familiar with his statistics right now, but I know he puts up good numbers, both points and assists. I don't know how well he rebounds, and I know he gets a fair amount of steals. So it seems like a good trade on Sam's part.
Yeah, well, listen, Sam, we always love trades where you get the best player in the deal because you can make up ground with that other roster spot. Okay, now we're going to get back into point guards. Now, I think there's a huge drop-off after Nunn and Mcconnell. And in truth, I don't even know how much to believe in Mcconnell. He is a solid player, there's no question, but I think he's still a cut above everybody else. Kendrick Nunn is still my number one pickup this week.
Yeah.
But TJ McConnell is really getting pretty tempting to take. When we get to the next round of point guards, who's next on your list? Ross, who do you got?
I like this guy a lot. Malik Monk. I love the name too. Malik Monk. He plays for the Charlotte Hornets. He's been averaging 20 points a game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. But he actually, in the past 2 weeks, he actually is like, he's out there a lot. He's plays like 30 minutes a game. He's out there to get the game-winning shot. They're trying to get him the ball a lot. He's even with these people coming back from injuries, he's playing a lot. So I love Malik Monk. Pick him up. He's a good pickup. The other one I like, I'm going to say it right now because I feel the trade deadline. We got to think about this. You got to think your mind. Okay, the trade deadline is going to happen at the end of March. So some teams are going to move a lot of players, which give a lot more playing time to that player that you want to pick up. Get it? So the one I like a lot is plays for the New York Knicks, Emmanuel Quickly. I know we talked about him before. He doesn't play. He right now he averages like 18 minutes a game, but I feel the Knicks are going to make some big moves. You heard it from Ross the Boss first. It's going to happen in the next 7 days during the All-Star break. I feel Quickly is going to be a starting guard for the Knicks and average at least 30 minutes a game. You heard it from me, but Quickly is somebody you should pick up now because when the Knicks make that move for that big player, and they are going to do it, you know I'm right, pick up Quickly.
Now,
quickly.
And do it quickly. Exactly. Now, we just talked with Anthony Puccio, who is an NBA insider, and he talked about the Knicks might trade for Bradley Beal. If that happens, Quickly becomes even more valuable because he's now got another guy who's going to make all those assists happen. Now, Sam is making another observation about his trade, a very good one, by the way. In his points league, Murray is only 3.5 points worse than Ben Simmons in the first place. So he almost doesn't lose that part of the deal. So essentially what you're saying is you're getting Lillard for Tatum. That is a massive win, as he said. So he also is saying that when LeVert comes back, TJ McConnell's value is going to sink. I think that's a very good point. Now, remember, though, a lot of teams are trying to make the playoffs right now. So if you need assists and you need steals, obviously steals, then he's a good pickup in the short term. And sometimes you ride a guy like that. I have Enes Kanter, and this guy, his value might go down because Nurkic is back. But right now I'm riding him as far as he'll go.
Streamer. We call that a streamer.
It's a streamer. We're streaming. Okay. Now, other point guards to mention, I'm just going to mention Lou Williams is back on the radar. He sank off of it for a while, but I think he is a good value, a back-end guy. I'm not saying he's the greatest, but you know, he gets you some good assists, some very solid steals as well, and his shooting numbers are pretty good. He's going to be hovering around maybe 95, 100 in his ranking, so he's not going to win you your league, but he's somebody worth picking.
Let me say one thing about Lou Williams because you brought it up, and I have to say this because I'm an insider with the NBA. I feel Lou and Patrick Beverly are both going to be traded to Toronto for Laurie. I think that deal is going to happen in the next week. You heard it from me first, Ross the Boss, because I feel the Clippers need a point guard that can actually play point guard, not be a shooter all the time to get us. They need a guy to give Leonard the ball, to give PG-13 the ball. So I know I'm off subject a little bit, but Lou Williams, he might go to Toronto. If he does, I think his value will go up. So that's a great pickup, Dr. Dan.
All right. Anybody else we have at point guard that we haven't mentioned? I have one, so I'll get to it if no one has anybody.
The only one I have on my list that hasn't been said is Jalen Brunson in Dallas. I think he probably plays more the 2 than the 1, but he qualifies as a point guard. And again, he's not going to win your league, like you said. He's not going to be the guy that is suddenly the golden ticket, but he's solid and he can play either of your guard spots and give you solid numbers, solid points, assists, good percentages. I think he makes over 2 3-pointers a game, so he can even chip in there. So he's somebody I would think as a streamer as well.
He was the guy I was going to mention, and I think it is important. It's funny because I don't overvalue points because most people do, so I go where the value is otherwise. But at a certain point, I got myself into some trouble. I'm not getting enough points, so I'm looking for guys like Jalen Brunson to add, and I scooped him up myself. He had 24 points in the first game I had him, so I'm very happy with him so far. Okay, reminder out there, if anybody wants to join us, either video or audio, you can come on at www.callmfsn.com. But if you're shy and you just want to support us, or you want to say you like us, or you want to just follow us, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below. Okay, guys, let's move on to shooting guards. Casey, who is your top shooting guard that's left there now?
Well, actually, he's injured. So I found that out today, and he's going to be out till after the All-Star break. But I also heard that there's trade rumors involving him, and that's Cam Reddish in Atlanta. He's been getting some run lately. His shooting percentage isn't great, but he's been doing almost everything else. And he's got the pedigree, the prospect pedigree. There's talk about him traded to another team where maybe he'll get more opportunity to play the shooting guard, small forward positions in Atlanta is one of the most crowded, I think, in the NBA. So it's a risky pick there, but I like the talent. I like the skill set, and he's starting to get some opportunity and show it.
I'm actually wondering, maybe Reddish will get dealt, but maybe somebody else from that crowded backcourt gets traded, and then his value goes up anyway. So not a bad idea. Ross, how about you?
Okay, Bruce Brown, he's no clown. Bruce Brown, he's no clown. Sorry. I love Bruce Brown. He plays for the Brooklyn Nets. I almost said New Jersey Nets. I don't know why. I always think of the Nets. I think New Jersey, but that's off the subject. Bruce Brown is shooting. Listen to this stat. Listen to this, Casey Scheinfold. 70% in the past 5 games. 70% field goal percentage. It's unbelievable. 16 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Bruce Brown, he's no clown. Bruce Brown, you pick him up right now.
I love the energy, Ross.
Wow.
This is good. And now listen, he's not wrong.
I think he said that because he's a Kevin Durant owner, and he knows that even if Durant comes back, he still benefits on both ends of that deal.
Well, it's not only that, but also on our other show, Run It Back with Sully and the Boss, Sully was talking up Bruce Brown a lot. And shout out to Sully. You had the call. Bruce Brown is the real deal. Is he going to keep shooting 70% though? We know that's not going to happen. 70% from a shooting guard is amazing, but he is putting up amazing numbers. Now, I will say this. Kendrick Nunn also qualifies as a shooting guard. So technically, he's still my top shooting guard as well. But since he qualifies at point guard, and that's actually a little harder to find value, he's not my top point guard. I would say that Brown probably is the top shooting guard. Casey, who else do you have on your list?
The only other person I have, and he's slipped off a little bit in the last couple of weeks, is Derek Jones Jr. out in Portland, because he's getting 2 blocks a game from the shooting guard position, which in addition to the other stuff, blocks are hard to come by enough at with the bigs who can get you 2 blocks a game. To get that out of a guard position with everything else, I think makes him an interesting pickup. Certainly not a must add, but somebody who can help you get through some of the leaner weeks with your roster.
Hey guys, I'm going to break the rules. Is it okay? Can I break a rule? I'm going to break a rule. Here we go. We say we're doing Yahoo 60% and under, but I need to make note of one player that is actually 71% owned, but the numbers may go down. And that is, Ross, don't hate me for it. It's Malik Beasley. Because Ross cut Malik Beasley because why? He was suspended for 12 games. So he is going to hurt you on your roster. But you got to keep an eye on Malik Beasley. And if those numbers keep going down, and as time passes, he becomes more and more valuable because that suspension is almost up, somebody's going to scoop him up. It really just depends on whether you can fit him on your team.
Don't put him on your team. It's an embarrassment.
Keep him
off your team. He points guns at people and families. He's a horrible individual. Don't pick him up. Don't pick him up.
Well, this is why it's funny. I'm more judgmental of Grayson Allen than I am of him. Just for the look on
Grayson Allen's a great individual. He gives back to his community. He's unbelievable. He went to Duke. This other guy's a thug. He points guns at families. Unbelievable. But you take him. Go ahead. Pick him up.
No, listen, you can also get guys like Jeremy Lamb. He's a shooting guard, small forward. And I love that because you can play him at the guard spots. You can play him at the forward spots. You know, those random guard and forward spots. You can plug him in all over the place. He's ranked 85th in the last 30 days. And
That's
Jeremy Lamb,
Justin
meanwhile,
Holiday,
you don't
too.
have to have the moral qualms that you do about Malik Beasley. And you also don't have to wait for him. So I hate to say it because my cousin Andrew owns Jeremy Lamb and he owns TJ McConnell and he's all of our arch rivals. So we don't like to see that. But I think that those makes for some good shooting guard pickups. Let's do some retreads just really quickly. People that we've already said. Justin Holiday, we've talked about all the time. We don't need to talk about him again. Sadiq Bey. Oh, Sadiq Bey is small forward. I shouldn't bring him up yet. I don't know why I just said that. I guess I read it as shooting guard. But there are guys like Jayshawn Tate. Who else is on there that we've already mentioned that we should just mention in passing? Because remember, we are trying to bring the best players available.
Right.
To our viewers.
Let me mention a couple guys we haven't mentioned in a while because they've been on the COVID list. They haven't been playing, and they're coming back after All-Star break, and the All-Star break starts actually tomorrow. There's no games for like a week in the NBA. So Derek White, who plays for the San Antonio Spurs, he's been on the COVID list. He hasn't played in like 2 weeks. He's coming back after All-Star break. San Antonio's schedule, I just looked at it. It's unbelievable. They have all these games they got to make up. Derek White's going to be playing a lot of minutes. He's somebody that you should pick up because he'll be playing for those Spurs. And when he's healthy, he's like a top 50 guy at least. I like Derek White a lot. So he's somebody that you should definitely think about picking up for that big run at the end because Derek White hasn't played and no one knows. Everybody forgot about him. He's been on the COVID list for like 2 weeks now. So for me, I think Derek White's a must pick up this week if you're looking for a shooting guard.
All right, now I just want to note Sam has a bone to pick with me about Jeremy Lamb, and he's got a point. I understand. He says don't pick up Lamb. In fact, he says no, don't pick up Lamb. His minutes are too low and will continue to go down with LeVert and Warren returning. Excellent arguments, but here's the thing. Just a counter argument. I'm not saying you're wrong, Sam, but these injured players that come back, they sometimes take a while to get back, and they sometimes don't make it back. So you could play Lamb as a streamer, and as soon as he loses value, you cut him. We're kind of in agreement there. I will say, in terms of shooting guard, here's another one that we've talked about before. And actually, I believe the first person who brought him up to me was Sam Jacobowitz. It is Gary Trent, and I'm saying this for you, Ross the Boss Jr. I know you hate when we say that because who is Gary Trent Sr.? We don't know who he is. But Gary Trent Jr., if you want some cheap points, this guy is putting up 18.9 points over the last 30 days. And no, not 18.9 points over the last 30 days. Per game over the last 30 days. 18.9 points in 30 days would be horrible. But he is a cheap source of points. So I think we've covered shooting guard pretty well. Let's get to... Oh, actually, sorry. There is... No, I was going to mention him, but he's a shooting guard small forward, so I'll bring him into small forward. Let's move to small forward. Casey, who do you got there?
Well, I have, ironically, another Atlanta Hawk who's become relevant in the last 2 weeks, and that's Danilo Gallinari. He started shooting again. He started playing. He's getting over 25 minutes a game. He's putting up points and rebounds, hitting the three, shooting good percentages. We need some trades in Atlanta of people to get some of the logjam out of the way, but he can help you in several categories at a critical time of the season. I just wanted to add something, to Sam, actually, going back to his trade. What Ross brought up in his rant about Derek White is also another win for you because it means Dejante Murray is going to have a lot more games in the second half of the season. So getting him in a points league, particularly, is even more beneficial when he's playing more games per week than anybody else in the league.
Good point. Did you guys see Gallinari's line last night? It was insane. I gotta pull it up on my computer. I'll pull it up while you guys talk about something else. But Gallinari's line is the kind of line that pops out at you. And I agree with you, Casey. I think to me, the must-adds, Kendrick Nunn's there. TJ McConnell, I think, has gotten to must-add. I understand his minutes are going to go down. And Gallinari is the other one. Maybe Brown also, Bruce Brown.
Yeah, but if you look at Gallinari, I studied that before we hit the air. He's not consistent enough for me. He has games where he has a great line like that, then he'll go about 2 or 3 games without doing anything. I mean, it's like it's 6 points, 1 rebound, and 2 assists. He's not consistent enough for me, but if you want to take a chance and spin that wheel with Gallinari, go ahead. He's always been a streaky guy. I don't. So that's not on my list.
It's true. I mean,
you could show the line though. Go ahead.
Okay, so this line is crazy, but you are right, Ross. This is not what consistently happens. He had 23 points. He had 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. And he had
what did he do the day
turnovers.
before? And tell me the stat the game before.
No, well, this to your point. He had only 8 points, 1 steal, no blocks, 4 rebounds, no assists, and
okay. So
turnover.
Casey Scheinfeld could have played that position.
Was there a minute diff? How many minutes did he play in each game?
Okay, so that's a good point. There you go.
Okay, well,
so small forwards. Let's talk small forwards. I got 15, a couple guys.
15 more minutes. But you're right, Ross. Let's move on to small forwards. Who do you guys have at the top of your list? Guys that are basically must-haves in small forward.
Go ahead, Ross.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was waiting for you to say Casey because he always gets to go first because he's your friend. So we
You're
mentioned
my
his name.
Friend, Ross. What are you talking about?
We mentioned his name before. Carmelo Anthony. I feel he has a mission right now. I feel this is his last year. I think he wants to go out with a bang. If you need points, Carmelo Anthony's your guy. I just feel he's going to just get better and better throughout the season. He looked unbelievable when he went against Charlotte. I guess he wanted to show LaMelo, the real Melo. No, I'm just kidding. He wanted to show off for LaMelo, and he had a great game, like we mentioned before. Another guy I like, he's been averaging 14 points a game, about 5 rebounds, couple assists in the past 2 weeks, is Lonnie Walker the fourth, because we know the third doesn't play, the second doesn't play, and the original Lonnie Walker, he's been out of basketball since the eclipse. So Lonnie Walker the fourth for San Antonio, I feel he's very consistent right now. He's doing like he's getting like good points, some rebounds. But small forward for me this week has been kind of weak, so I'm not crazy about any small forwards this week. I think the shooting guards and point guards are a lot stronger this week, but those are my two strongest.
Though, there are guys who are shooting guards, small forwards. They have that designation. Justin Holiday is one of them. I know we
talked about him. Yeah.
But he is keeping up his value. He's great. Joe Ingles is another guy that we've mentioned many times.
He's been going down in value. If you've been watching his stats, he's been going ever since we mentioned him. He's been going down and down.
I've been following.
I love Joe. I love average Joe. I love watching him play. I just feel ever since we mentioned him, I think we hexed him. I don't know what happened, but his stats have been going down.
We did.
I don't know.
I mean, it was the voodoo doll, I think, that did it.
Casey did something to him. I don't know what he did.
Listen, I mean, he's not going down much, though. He still has very good value.
Keep going.
Okay. Other small forwards. One of the guys that I wanted to mention that is a shooting guard small forward also, it's back end value, but it's still pretty good, is Dylan Brooks. Now, Ross.
Just for points. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Just for points. Now, Sam is disagreeing with me a lot today. He's feisty today. I appreciate that, Sam. He says drop Ingles. He says drop him. I love it. We got some good disagreement going here. How about this for another small forward?
I think he and Ross in a debate would be great because they're both very opinionated and very passionate about.
And we're both the same age. It'd be perfect. You're right, Casey. Thank you.
Well, what's your average age? You and Sam. We have to figure that out.
I don't want to talk about it. Just keep going.
Okay, so here's another shooting guard small forward. We've talked about him before. A couple of guys, Josh Hart and Danny Green. I just want to mention them. We're not going to talk much about him. Casey, any guys on small forward that we haven't talked about as much that we need to highlight here?
No, not really. I agree with Ross that small forward has been a little underwhelming in the past couple of weeks. So from the waiver wire perspective, so I didn't have a lot of must adds from there.
Okay, I'm gonna add a couple just to give you some ideas. So first of all, this is a guy we've talked about before. But we have not talked about him for weeks. I talked about him early on. Miles Bridges has really held his value pretty well. He's rebounding a ton. So take a look at him. Another guy that you may want to consider is Isaac Okoro of the Cavs. This guy is a defensive specialist, and the Cavs are starting to gel again, which means they're going to fall apart very soon. But you may want to look at that guy, Isaac Okoro. He's averaging 1.3 steals over the last 30 games. Sorry, not 30 games, 30 days. 0.9 blocks. He gets over 10 points. He shoots threes. His shooting percentage is good. I'm not saying he's going to win you your league, but if you're looking for a roster spot and you're looking for somebody who has some good upside, I'd say it's him. How about Kyle Kuzma, guys? What do you say about him?
You know, I picked him up this week because with AD being gone, I thought his minutes would go up and obviously some of his usage would go up. And then he promptly got hurt. I think he's missed the last couple games and he's supposed to miss the rest before the All-Star break.
No, he played, Casey, he played last night. I watched the Laker
did he
game.
finally?
I'm in Los Angeles.
I thought he played well.
He played well last night.
Good.
I like Kuzma. I just
Then I'm
feel
glad
he's
I
not
picked him up.
consistent. But I do like him though. He's somebody that can help you in every category, actually.
We need to have like a segment in the show when one of us completely misses information about a player on our own team.
No, that's why we're all on the show together. We're here
He's
to
even on my
correct each
team.
other.
I
It's
even
great.
checked my stats from last night and I must have just straight overlooked him.
You must look. Sam says drop Kuzma. He isn't good. I disagree with you, Sam. I say don't even pick him up. So actually, we do agree.
But if you saw my roster, Sam, you'd want me to pick him up.
At the same time, Casey picked him up and he got 25 points. He had a steal. He had 13 rebounds. So that was a good game. Now cut him.
Right.
He says Sam says he only plays well with AD. Sam is really in the know. I think you have a future in the NBA in some way. I don't know if you're a player or if you're going to be an analyst, but you've got it going. Okay, guys, let's move to power forwards. Who is at the top of your list? We'll start with you, Ross.
Start with me. So I'm going to mention a name that no one has on their list, but I like him. He's been averaging 13 points a game, 5 rebounds, few assists, a steal a game the past 5 games. Is I don't know if I'm saying his name right, so Casey, don't correct me. Daniel House. He plays for the Houston Rockets. The Rockets have lost 13 in a row. You're saying, Ross, why do you want to pick a player up who's lost 13 in a row? Houston is not done dealing and wheeling yet. They'll be making more deals. House is going to be their power forward, small forward, starting 30 minutes, 35 minutes a game. House right now is a great pickup, especially where Houston's going right now with their team. They'll be doing a lot of trades during the All-Star break, and they'll be dealing some obvious players that I don't want to mention. But House is up there. The other player I like, I know he's a center, but we talked about him before, but he's also a power forward, is Boogie Cousins. Boogie Cousins is going to be traded, or I think he's not. I think he's a free agent. Yeah, he's a free agent. He passed through waivers. He'll be signed by somebody. Before he was like let go from Houston, he was averaging like 14, 15 points a game, 10 rebounds. He's been having a good season. He's going to go somewhere where he'll be able to play a lot. And I predict that, say Ross the boss is right. I say he goes to the Boston Celtics. Take that, Casey Scheinfeld.
That's exactly what I was going to predict. That's
yes,
crazy.
Me and Dan agree for once. So I feel that you got to just pick him up. He's available in a lot of leagues because when he got waived, everybody waived him on their team. So you got to think All-Star break tomorrow, who's going to be traded, who's going to be picked up. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But
okay, a couple comments. First of all, Sam is making some comments that do need to be highlighted, and I'm going to get to them in a second. But if you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, change your mind if you don't like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we will respond to them directly. Now, Sam says, I was about the comment that I said, maybe he'll be a player. He says, I'm realistic. I won't be a player. I'm not like any of these kids. They keep saying I'm going to be a player. I like to be realistic. If I would be involved, it would be in some type of under-the-radar job. And then he promptly laughed at us about Boogie Cousins and says, I don't think he's going to Boston. I can't see it. Why not, Sam? Make your comment. Let's hear from you on it. But
better yet, call in.
Power forward, he definitely came to mind. I mean, I will also mention Carmelo Anthony in this range because, look, Carmelo Anthony's probably best at it as a small forward because it's, I think, kind of the weakest position on the waiver wire. But if you need a power forward, he's a good guy to pick up. Here's another guy I like, Maxi Klieber.
Yes.
I've talked about him a lot, but I'm not going to say he's a must add, but he's ranked 72nd in average stats over the last 30 days. Some of that was due to injury, so it's not actually 30 days worth of play. But the thing about Maxi Klieber that I like is he hits threes and he gets blocks. Where Maxi Klieber is no fun actually is in points. And this is why he's so undervalued. You can scoop him up. So I think he's a good pickup. Ross, who else do you have at power forward?
Well, I mean, that's about it. I mean, I had Kuzma also as a power forward, but we talked about him already. So as I mentioned, the ones I like I already mentioned. I really have no one else in the power forward position. I have a few that are centers, power forwards, but I wanted to save them for centers. So let's just move on if you want.
All right, we'll do that. Casey, how about you before we move on?
Unfortunately, I had
a
House and Klieber, so I am already talked about. I'm in the famous Ross seat where everybody mentions his players and then he can just sit there and sulk.
All right, well let's just give a little shout out to Jay Crowder as a back end guy. He could be a good streamer. If he has 4 games in a week, pick him up. If he doesn't have 4, I wouldn't recommend him. He's not at the top. But one guy that might be is Patrick Williams on the Bulls. We've mentioned him before. This is not new. But let me just give you some stats. He's averaging 10.6 a game, 5.7 rebounds, 1 block a game with decent shooting percentages. That's pretty good value. So if you're looking for a back-end guy, I think he's your guy. So Sam Jacobowitz, back to the Boogie Cousins argument. I love this. Sam, it's like you're a co-host. We've got 4 hosts, and Sam is one of them. He's just virtual. So he says he doesn't think he would fit well in Boston because they already have 3 centers fighting for a spot, and adding a 4th, they wouldn't do it. See, I think Boogie Cousins is more versatile than that, and I think he basically would relegate, I'm guessing, Tristan Thompson to the bench. But, you know, there are guys that are pretty expendable there. And I also think he could make players a lot better. But Tristan Thompson is also there to kind of teach people. So let's move to centers, guys. Casey, we're going to start with you. Who's at the top of your list for centers?
Well, to say the top of my list is kind of hard because I don't think there are necessarily any must-have or must-own centers. But Robert Williams in Boston, we'll get back to the Celtics. He's still under 60% owned, and he's kind of that per-minute monster. As long as he stays out of foul trouble, the numbers, the blocks he gets, the rebounds he gets on a per-minute basis is pretty impressive. And so he's kind of the guy I have at the top of the list, but he's certainly not at the top of a list.
Right. I get you. And Ross, how about you? Who's in your center argument?
Well, he's still under 60%. I still like Jacob Paletti for San Antonio. A lot of Spurs today.
You are a Spurs fan.
But again, I mean, the Spurs are going to have a lot of games coming up, and I saw their schedule. It's unbelievable. But Paletti, to me, he gets like 25, 30 minutes a game. He can play center. He can play power forward. But for me, I think he's the best pickup right now if he's available in your league as a center.
Okay, we have another comment coming in from our 4th co-host, Sam. Sam says he wouldn't take DeMarcus Cousins over. Now, this is interesting. He calls him Rob Williams. This suggests a great familiarity with Robert Williams. They're like friends.
I'm glad
and Rob
Sam
Williams
agrees with me.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel better about myself, actually.
But actually, I agree with Sam on that, too. I wasn't saying take Cousins over our good friend Rob Williams, who we hang out at the movie theater with. I also wouldn't take him over Theus. But fantasy sports
let me explain something to you guys really quickly, okay? Really quickly, I'll make it a quick little rant. The Boston Celtics are a 500 team. Danny Ainge is a very competitive guy. We know that. He's won championships. He's their GM. He doesn't want to lose. They got to change that team around. They have some superstars on their team right now that are playing well, but they can't win. Their coach is in the hot seat. He even admitted that his player choices are not good. Theus is horrible. That Daniel Theus guy, horrible. He looks I saw Zion Williamson push him, and he went flying into the stands a couple weeks ago. Unbelievable. So they're going to make some changes on their roster, the Boston Celtics, and Boogie Cousins would be an unbelievable pickup. So don't argue with me about Rob Williams, who's a mediocre player. Look at his stats and compare him to Cousins. There's no comparison. You have no idea what you're talking about.
I feel like wasn't Robbie Williams like some British
he was some British pop star.
British pop star, yeah.
Who cares about how about Robin Williams, the comedian? Can we say his name?
That's right.
No,
That's
you don't
right.
bring his name up.
The
you
best
bring up
Rob
Robbie
Williams of all time.
Who's a hack.
I love when you lose your mind, Ross. I can't help it. It's just
awesome.
It's fun to watch.
But if we want to get to trades, we got to move along.
Yeah, thank you, Casey Scheinfeld. I love you for that.
You're the one ranting there, big guy.
He hit a nerve, okay? I'm sorry. I'm just tired of hearing about Boogie Cousins and why he doesn't like him. I don't care. You're totally wrong. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Don't argue with our 4th co-host like that. Okay, listen. Now let's talk about guys to target for trade. I just want to remind everyone out there, we kind of summed this up a couple weeks ago, but basically you were looking for guys who have very high preseason rankings who have not performed. That's one trade target. And another is guys who haven't had the high pedigree, but have performed. And then there's a third, which is buried numbers, where they weren't playing that well, but recently they are. And if you're paying attention, you can snag them. Casey, let's start with you. Who are some of the guys that you have ready to target in trades?
Unfortunately, I own a couple of them because
you already won.
Right. Well, that's because they've been anchoring my roster, like being an anchor on my roster is what I meant by that. But I don't think they will be for that long. And that's players like Christian Wood, who's been out, it seems like, for the last 3 weeks, hasn't played. You can, as a frustrated owner, if you made me a good enough offer, I might consider it. Nurkic is another one like that. And then to go on Ross's theme with the Spurs this week, I think LaMarcus Aldridge is another good guy to target who is out, might be able to be gotten at this point. And when he comes back, he immediately contributes in all those categories that make you really solid for the playoffs.
Okay, now Sam is saying, and he said this actually on my Q&A last night, because 2 nights ago, I was paying attention, that Tatum is a huge buy low. He's saying it again here. Ross, do you agree, or are you going to fight with our fourth co-host, Sam Jacobowitz?
I mean, I don't see Jason Tatum's playing well. I don't know what he's talking about. His stats are up to par. I don't feel he makes that list. I got people that I want to talk about that are a lot better value pickups right now that people are down on because they're not playing because of COVID, or they're not playing because they're injured, or they're underperforming right now. But no, I don't agree at all.
Okay, Tatum is a great buy, but I don't think he's a buy low because you can't get him for cheap.
Thank you.
You're gonna end up paying full price. So, how about a guy like Tobias Harris? He was ranked 62nd overall coming in, but he's ranked 29th on the season. The ship may have sailed. At this point, people know who he is, and people knew who he was before. Is he even a guy that you can trade for now? I think Porzingis is a guy you can probably get more easily because the numbers are hidden behind the games that he's missing. In fact, Porzingis is one of my targets. Casey, what do you think about that? Those two names and whatever else you have.
I think Tobias Harris has been, ever since he came over in that trade to the Sixers as a pure scorer, he's done nothing but put up numbers for the Sixers. I don't think there's that much of a surprise factor with him that he's outpacing what his average rank was. I don't think he's somebody you can get for less value. Porzingis, again, I like him. And I think, again, on a per minute basis or per game basis, he puts in great numbers for you as a 7'3" guy who can play inside or outside. The problem is I don't trust him to stay healthy for any 3 or 4 game stretch. So I don't think I would target it.
Right. No, that makes sense. Now, listen, our producer, Greg Romano, is trying to get Sam Jacobowitz to come on. He's trying to convince him. He's saying, listen, you can wear a mask. We can change your voice. Ross has a thing he does when we turn off his lights at the end of the show at night, and he looks like he's in the witness protection program. And then he says in this crazy voice, "I'm Ross the boss, and I'm at this address," which is not what you say if you're in witness protection, Ross. Come on, get with the program. Okay, Ross, you've been itching. I can tell you're itching to give us some of your trade targets. Go right ahead.
Okay, I want to mention the Porzingis, what you mentioned before. I have a feeling Porzingis is going to be traded. Listen to me, Shinefold. You know, I could be right here.
You always are, Rob.
I feel he could go to the Washington Wizards for maybe Jeremy Beal. Beal wants out of that place. I don't blame him. And he'll go to Dallas, Porzingis, and maybe somebody else for Beal. I don't know. I'm just saying it could happen. They've been talking rumors about Porzingis being traded last week, and Mark Cuban totally denied it. But I have a feeling there'll be a lot of trades going on in the next 7 days, Casey Shinefold. I'm excited to watch what happens because every time it happens, it's going to change fantasy tremendously. Every trade changes the outlook on every fantasy, from the team who starts, who doesn't start, who gets traded, playing time. There's so many factors.
I agree. And listen, Ross and I know Mark Cuban. We've had him on, and he's the kind of guy who just sits there with the Larry O'Brien trophy just lying around in the back. He loves that thing.
Okay, so let me go through my list of names that I think that are good targets that are valued kind of low because they're either injured or COVID, or they're not playing that well right now. But these are guys that you should go out and try to trade for, and they're coming back as soon as the All-Star break is over. The first one on my list is Kevin Durant. I feel their owners are frustrated. He hasn't played in 2 weeks. He's been nursing this calf, but I feel when he comes back, he'll be coming back in vengeance. He's itching to play, and as soon as the All-Star break is over, he's back in the lineup. Another guy that Casey mentioned is Christian Wood. I agree with that one. I'm not going to say anything else. Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is going to be traded. They already said they're trading him during the All-Star break. This was said a month ago. He's going to be traded. I feel it's going to be Toronto. Ross the Boss could be wrong, but Drummond in Toronto, he'll get a lot of rebounds, a lot of points. He'll do well in points and even blocks. So Drummond is somebody that you can get really cheap. Another guy I like that's playing not that great right now is Fred VanVleet. VanVleet is unbelievable. I mean, he shoots threes from all over the place. He gets points. He gets assists. He's somebody that I don't know how cheap you can get him, but if you can pick him up for the second half of the season, pick him up. It's worth it. It's worth it. Another guy I like, I don't know if I could pronounce it. He went to a horrible university. Is Larry Markkin? Markkin. Thank you, Casey.
You're welcome.
He hasn't played.
I think it's Laurie.
Laurie. Is it Laurie? I thought it's Larry. So he plays for the
University
Chicago
of Arizona,
Bulls.
Baby.
Horrible university.
I had to say it.
He was averaging 19 points a game with 8 rebounds. He has not played in weeks. He's been hurt. He's coming back as soon as this All-Star break is over. He's coming back. So try to trade him with somebody that's kind of frustrated. I don't want to have this guy on my roster anymore. Trade for him because he's going to do 20 points a game, 8 rebounds. Pick him up now.
Okay.
What?
Is great recommendations. Casey, if you want to get in one really quickly, let's say a name. We got to wrap up here, and I have a name, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Mine, the ship has sailed on it. We did this. I made my list a couple weeks ago, and I was saying Jared Allen, but he's now like a top 15 player in the league.
Well, I'm just going to mention DeAndre Ayton. This guy, he's ranked 71st overall, but he came in ranked 19th. He could have a monster second half. I think he's a great guy to trade for. So listen, I want to thank everybody for watching. It's been a great waiver wire. All 4 of the hosts, me, Casey, Ross, and Sam Jacobowitz, we loved having you here. It's been great. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below and we'll answer you directly. Thank you for joining us.
We're gonna set the internet on. When it's just the